In this tutorial, I want to think about doing some more advanced animation. So yes, you can select any item and you can rotate it and you can scale it and obviously you can move it. All right, so all of that's doable right here. So that's the normal options, but there is a little tip if you want to create something a little bit more interesting that you need to do at this point. Okay, so if you're going to create the 3-letter word joy, for example, we're doing J-O-Y, I'm going to duplicate the text twice. So I'm going to click duplicate here. Okay, and I'm going to turn off the first text and I'm going to select the second text and I'm going to change its, using the sprite editor, I'm going to change it to O. There we go. And, you know, we can change the colors in a minute, and I'm just going to select that and I'm going to duplicate it again. And I'm going to turn off the middle one and I'm going to select this one. And again, I'm going to go to the sprite editor and I'm going to change it to Y. Okay, so I've now got the 3 letters J-O-Y. I would change the colors, but I mean, time's not going to allow me to do all of this. So let's just leave them at the same colors. So all 3 letters are underneath there. Now here's a little tip to start off with. They're all on exactly the same Z plane. You'll see if I click between them, you'll see they're all on exactly the same Z plane. You don't want that. So I'm going to click on the first one and I'm going to take it back. There's 3 letters, so I'm simply going to go back 1, 2, 3. This will save problems later. Take the second one, I go back 2, and then the last one is on the original plane. So we know that they're on different Z planes by 1 pixel, which means they won't interact if they fan out from each other. Okay, so now we're going to set up something that's going to be quite interesting for fanning the text up. And I'm sorry this tutorial is a little bit longer, but that's the way it's got to be. I've got the first piece of text selected, and I'm now going to bring in a pivot. And I'm going to go to my content, and I've got a pivot, but any object will do, any simple object that you've got, not a complicated one, but any simple one, a ball, anything. I got this out of Affinity Designer, and it's just a cross that I've brought across. So if you've got Affinity Designer, you've got these sorts of assets in there. But I'm just going to bring it across to say there, and that looks about in the right place for me. So this is going to become the anchor point for that. So I'm going to go back to my scene, and I'm going to select the first item, and with everything else turned off, this is the way it works best to be able to sort this out, because linking can be a bit fiddly, if I'm honest. I've got the first piece of text selected. You see it selected on screen. Click the link button and go down and click the first pivot. Okay, and then if I select the pivot and I was to rotate it, you'll see that that is rotating from the pivot. Control Z or Command Z to get back to finish. And I'm going to rename the pivot as well. So I'm going to click on it, double click on it, and I'm going to call it pivot, P-I-V-O-T, space, and then I'm going to go brackets 0, brackets, because if you duplicate anything, it goes 0, 1. You can see we've actually got 0 and 1 here. So 0, the next one would be 1 and then 2. So I want, for the next piece of text, which I'm now going to turn on, I want another pivot. So I'm going to select this pivot and duplicate it. And I'm going to turn off the other pivot. Because again, when you're linking, it's much easier to do it this way. Select the piece of text, click the link button, and link it to that pivot. Select that pivot, and just do a quick rotation and then Command Z, and you'll know that it's worked. Okay, and then again, I need to do the same, so I'm going to select the last piece of text, select this pivot and duplicate it, turn off that one, or make sure that text is on. So with that text selected, link button, go down, link it to that pivot. So that pivot we can now select and we can rotate it and you'll see that everything works perfectly. Okay, so now I can turn everything on. Okay, now if I want to move the whole group around, I can do so, but this is where we can actually start doing some animation, but we animate the pivots. So I'm going to take pivot 0 and I'm going to go to the prop editor and I'm going to rotate it. So you've got J, and then I'm going to go to, unfortunately you've got to turn it off and turn it back on again. It's not like the other one. I'm going to go to pivot 2, which is the final one, J-O, which is Y, sorry, select Y, and again go to the prop editor and rotate it the other direction. Okay, so if I had been at 60 frames, that would have been an animation, but there you go. So I'm now going to go to my timeline, and let's go to say 60 frames here. And what you can do is with this selected, whatever you have selected will show. So I'm actually going to double click to create a keyframe, and let's just do the same with the other one. So select that one, transform, double click to create the keyframe, and this one, transform, double click to create the keyframe. And now I can go back to the beginning and I can select the prop editor and I can reset. So we've got J and O, so let's just make sure the J is going back. So let's just select that one and go to here and just reset it, or just take it back to 360. Okay, and then just pull the playhead out and just check that's all working. So for some reason J is not working. So let's just move it out now. It's the wrong way. Redo that one. Occasionally this thing's a bit finicky. Looks about right to me. Just check that's worked. There we go. So we've now got joy. Okay, so that's an animation that you can actually do with this, but of course you can do more than that. You can select all the pivot points and you can move them as a group. So you can make the whole thing smaller. You can move it on screen and you can rotate it. Okay, so you can do individual ones as well. So if I choose one individual pivot point, I can actually change that particular one as well. So just by doing a grouping, you can actually create these much more interesting looks. And of course you can change the colors in SVG editors and what have you. So there's an awful lot you can do with this particular tool. It takes a bit of setting up, but once it's set up, you can create something that's going to look a lot more interesting than it would do with just a standard piece of text. I'm sorry this has been such a long tutorial, but I hope you see that this is a valuable tool that you might want to use at some stage in the future. My name's Andrew Davis, and thank you very much for watching.